I was going to share a couple of thoughts. One is that, and I don't know what Josh is going to share, because we haven't talked about, we haven't shared our research with each other, but half of all Americans report in a recent survey, half of all Americans, it's like 52%, have reported losing sleep over something they're worried about. So that means if you think about it, 1 out of every 2 people on this call is sleep deprived for some reason. There's something that's keeping you up at night. And some of us are world-class worriers. Some people just are kind of wired that way. Some people don't worry as much. Some people worry more. And if you're wired that way, and I'm usually not. I'm usually pretty calm. And yet there are things in my life that have happened that have kept me up all night and made me worry. And one of my professors, I remember in a Bible study, really helped distinguish between worry and concern. And I think that's an important distinction, because if you're concerned, all of us are concerned about certain things, and some things we should be concerned about. But when it gets to the point of worrying, that can lead us down a road that is, we're spending time spinning in our minds things that it's not productive. Now, that doesn't, I may know that intellectually, that it's not productive, and yet it's hard to get out of that when you're in that. So in those moments, I can't begin to tell you how many times I've turned things over to God only to take them right back from God, as if God couldn't handle them. And Parker Palmer is one that I first heard use the phrase functional atheism. That really, I realized, well, he's describing how I am sometimes, that I profess Jesus on Sunday, but on Monday, as I go out into the world, I act as if Jesus is not there, or is not, as Josh said in his sermon, is not enough. I act as if God is not enough for my problems. And someone put it this way, that I spend my time telling God how big my problems are instead of telling my problems how big my God is. That there are times that you can become overwhelmed with worry. I do want to say something that was very important in what Josh said this morning. And I think it's something I hope you hear from the church as an ongoing part of our message. And that is that there are situations where anxiety gets a hold of you in a way that is really detrimental to your health, and you need professional help. And that's not wrong. Now, there are churches that will tell you, you just need Jesus. You just need to pray more, and you shouldn't worry so much. And you just need Jesus, and Jesus, can fix your anxiety. I'm just telling you from my own experience, anxiety is real, and there are people who suffer from anxiety, and it can be detrimental to your emotional and spiritual health. And I just encourage people to seek professional help, and we can help do that. Our caring team can help connect you to professional resources. I say that because I want to normalize that. I want that to be part of what it means to be a person of faith. Is that just like if I had cancer, I would go to a doctor for a cure. If I have anxiety, I go to professional help to deal with my anxiety. Now, sometimes my faith can help me deal with my anxiety and not allow it to blow things out of proportion. But sometimes that anxiety can get a hold of you. So I've seen people helped by professional help with anxiety, and I believe in it, and I think that's important. So I just wanted to say that. Another thing that this whole thing about God versus wealth, and this idea that I like the way that in the older versions of the Bible it said mammon, and I was like, what is mammon? Well, mammon is wealth. Mammon is wealth, and at some point in your life, and it may be that you do this daily, you have to make a decision about where do you place your ultimate trust? Where are you going to place your ultimate value in life? What is your priority? And for many of us, money and wealth are that seductive God that call to us, that give the false impression that it will solve all of our problems. I can tell you that I've spent a lot of time in hospital waiting rooms, ICU waiting rooms, and I've never heard one person in one of those rooms when they're on their knees praying to money. They may be thankful that they have insurance. They may be thankful that they have the ability to afford the treatment that they're under. But I've never heard anybody on their knees praying to money. And at some point, you have to think about what is my real priority. I found this out several years ago in a book called Essentialism. There is the word priority never appeared in the English language until the 1400s, and it was singular. It was never priorities, plural. It was always priority, just with a Y on the end, like this is, and what does that mean? It's like the number one thing. It's my priority. It's the prior thing. It's above all other things. It is prior to anything else that I want to, anything else in my experience. It is my priority. Only in the 1900s, and this is so typical, that in America in the 1900s, we started pluralizing that word so that I can say, well, my top 5 priorities, you've heard politicians say, in my 12-point priority plan, we have 12 priorities in my administration. It's like 12? Only 12? Is that all you got? But the word really cannot be pluralized. It means the first thing, the prior thing, the thing that is above everything else. So at some point in your life, you have to wrestle with, what is that prior thing for me? And I will tell you, just true confession, there are times that I allow money and wealth to dominate my thoughts and think, if I could just have enough, then I could do, and it's like anybody that, in my experience, it's like anybody that makes more than you is rich. So it's like if they make 10,000 more than you, they must be rich, right? Because they do everything. And money's, I don't want to downplay the important. Money is important, and having financial security is important. But is it the most important thing? And there's this whole theology of stewardship that really, I think, the New Testament speaks to, and the whole Bible speaks to, and that is the stewardship principle, is that God is the owner of all things. And when I understand that my job is to be a manager, a steward of that which God has entrusted to me, then my role changes. I'm not the owner. I don't have all the worries of an owner. I have the job of being a manager, a steward of that which God has entrusted. That to me takes some pressure off and defines my role more clearly and helps me understand the proper use of money. It all belongs to God. God's the owner, and it all belongs to God. So I just share that. I think that's important as a principle, because I think Jesus is really challenging. And how brilliant is Jesus? Of all that he talks about in the New Testament, in the Gospels, he says so much about money because he knows this is where we struggle. This is where we struggle. There's so many verses in the Bible about money, and most of them have to do with the proper use, how we use it. Jesus used it in parables to talk about value. But there's so much in the New Testament about particularly about money and the poor. he talks a lot about that. There are lots of subjects that Jesus never speaks on. He's silent on, but he talks a lot about the poor, and he talks a lot about money. And the New Testament continues that talk about money, because I think we struggle with that so much. And I think it's so important for us to get a handle on that in terms of, what, when it's all said and done, what is my priority in life? And how will I live that singular priority out in the way that I live? And if God is my priority, then what does that say about how I view money and its importance and its role, which is an important role, but it's not the ultimate. It's not it's not my number one priority. I think that's important. And Josh, are you back yet?
I am.
Okay.
I think.
All right.
For now.
So I just throw those thoughts out. I think this is one of those chapters I have to go back and read again and again and again and again. And particularly, when I'm just stressed out and worried, just to think, God takes care of the birds. God takes care of the grass of the fields. If God, I love that song that Josh pulled out in his sermon this morning. If God's eye is on the sparrow, then why do I not trust that God watches over me and my needs? And I love what Josh did with that whole idea of enough. That was powerful. Josh, take it away.
Okay. I think one of the benefits of Zoom is that it kind of lets you into each other's homes a little bit. So I feel so much closer to y'all now that you've seen my son run around in his underwear. Classic Zoom moment right there. So I'll do this really quickly. The study I was reading talked about this idea called delayed return environment. And his whole argument was that this is a more modern evolution, a more modern phenomenon, that we make plans today for future fruit. And his argument was that is something that developed more recently, because in former years, more historically, the return on our decisions were more immediate. We would make immediate decisions because of more immediate circumstances. There wasn't retirement planning. There weren't all of these future planning ideas. And the antidote for all of this stress and worry was stop thinking about the tomorrow so much and start thinking about today, one day at a time. And I'm reading this article and I want to go, wait a second. I've heard these words before, and you're not the first to say them. And I think they've been around for a couple thousand years. Look at this, Matthew chapter 6. I just thought that there's some irony there, in that the antidote for this whole phenomenon of worry was exactly what Jesus was saying in the Sermon on the Mount. And so I just want to recap a couple of those things. One of the things I know in the Methodist tradition, we sometimes sing, we sometimes say is praise God from whom all blessings flow. Now, when we do this, this is a reminder, as a part of our liturgy, of the abundance that we have in God. And so I think sometimes when we think about worry and we get worried about tomorrow, we switch off what we might call a mindset of abundance and switch to a mindset of scarcity. So it's our human nature. So when you feel God calling you to do something, sometimes our human nature, or you might call our sinful or fallen nature, our first thought is there's no way I could do that. That's operating out of a mindset of scarcity. Like, I don't have the skills, the resources, the wisdom. There's no way I could do that. And instead, I want to think about what would it look like for us if God is enough, if God sits on the throne, if this call is truly coming from God in whatever large or small capacity. What would it look like if instead we operated out of a mindset of abundance and said, okay, if it's God who's calling me to do this, then I know God will be faithful. Again, that can be on a big scale or just in our daily lives. Is your first thought, there's no way I could do that? Or is your first thought, yes, God is going to help me do this? It's a shift from not focusing on what we lack, but focusing on what we have. You see, when we focus in the future on tomorrow, we think of the things that we don't have yet. It's, again, that word enough. I don't have this. I don't have enough. I don't have this. But like the prisoner in the sermon, if we focus on the gift that today is, we instead switch our mindset to what we have, to the abundance instead of the scarcity. Now, there's this philosopher that I really enjoy, a contemporary philosopher named Peter Rollins, and he has a couple quotes that I want to throw out there. The first one is this: He says, fulfill your dreams. Okay, and these are a little bit, I don't want to say shocking, but you'll hear. He says, fulfill your dreams so that you can realize the abject horror of their impotence. Okay, I'm going to say it again because it's like, what? I didn't see that coming. Fulfill your dreams so you can realize the abject horror of their impotence. The point he's trying to make is that sometimes the dreams we have for the future, the things that we focus so much of our energy on for a day in the future, aren't worth missing the value of the present moment, right? So we put so much stress and so much anxiety into what we're dreaming of in the future that we miss out on the joy of what's happening right here. So another one that he says about that is he says that God is found in the midst of life, not the escape of it. I love that. God is found in the midst of life, not the escape of it. So sometimes when we're going through things like a global pandemic, we'll say, I can't wait to get past this. Right? Our mindset immediately goes to the escapism. What is it going to be like when we're finally out of this? And what we're reminded by Peter Rollins, but also by Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount, is that this also includes God, and that God is found in this, in today. And that's something that I struggle with, quite frankly, is to just stop and say, okay, yes, I'm looking forward to when I'm past this, but where is God in this? How can I find the presence and enjoy the presence of God here and now? I could take that further, but I won't take too much more time. Just the bottom line is I think this pandemic in general has really forced us to ask the question of, instead of asking, what do I want? What do I have? So we immediately go to, what are these things that I want? What we need to do is stop and say, right here, right now, what do I have? I think at the beginning of the pandemic, when we were all locked inside for the first time, that was a mind shift. Instead of saying, I cannot believe we're getting locked inside, we instead had to look around and say, okay, but what do I have? I have more time with my kids or my home projects or whatever it is. Again, shifting your mindset from a mentality of scarcity to a mindset of abundance. What do I have? How can I be blessed? Where is God here and today?